How's it going, everybody? Welcome into the Skyline Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jack Hartman, joined, as always, by my good friend, my co-host from the West Coast, Nick Normand. Nick, how you doing today?
Doing well today, Jack. Happy start of summer. I know your wife is a teacher. I'm sure she's getting stoked. I don't know if you guys are out of school yet, but the schools are
She has
getting out
one more day.
that close, and I'm sure that's
Yeah.
going to feel wonderful for her. But happy start of summer. The June deadline, June 1, came and went, and we had some action. Stoked to be talking with you about that today. How are you doing? How's the start of summer going for you right now?
Yeah, start of summer for me is going well. The way that I describe it for me with my job is I'm just as busy, but it's different busy. So we don't have youth group every week throughout the summer. We do more events. So bigger things that happen like every 2 weeks instead of every week. So just as busy because it is a bigger thing, but there's not this every single week deadline that comes with it, which is nice. Um, but yeah. So I'm sort of easing into it, easing into some summer projects. We are putting a disc golf course in at our property here at the church,
Ooh.
which is super fun. So we did I did the course design a few months ago, and now we're getting into actually going in and cutting stuff out in the woods and moving some earth around and stuff like that. So it's happening, which is really really cool and really exciting.
That's
But um, yeah, so still busy, just different kind of busy, and yeah,
Mhm.
looking forward to what all comes with that.
Mhm. That's awesome. I just played disc golf a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if I messaged you about it, but had a lovely time, reconnected with a family friend at a wedding. And I was like, hey, you want to go out tomorrow, throw some discs, play some disc golf? And he was like, sure. And one, I haven't played much, and so I was not very good. But he's also much older than me, so I got more of a long drive than he does, but my layups and putting are much worse than his. But there was one on a mid-range drive that he had where he was just trying to throw it hard that it got wedged between two trees that were next to each other, where the disc got perfectly lodged between the two
Nice.
trees, and it was just perfect. Where I'm like, take it where it lies,
Yep.
got to throw it from there. We had a ball. It was a fun day for sure.
Cool. Yeah, no, disc golf is a good time, man. It's a
Mhm.
nice way to be outside and get a little bit of exercise and be able to to just enjoy the outdoors and enjoy creation. It
Mhm.
really is a great thing. So
For sure. So we're starting off today before we get into the trade news, which we're very excited about talking about. We're going to do some immaculate grid. So I'm just going to pull up our lovely immaculate grid.
hmm
And I know we were peeking at this a little bit before we started recording, but these are some interesting categories. We got a lot of cat teams, got 1,000 receptions in a season since 1999, played with Blake Bortles. Um,
yeah,
when I look at this, I see Andy Dalton for Panthers and um, Bengals. I feel like that's going to
yeah.
be very common, though.
Well, so
This
here's
one
a
I see
question:
Corey Dillon. Go for it.
when when Sam Darnold, sorry, when Andy Dalton was in Carolina, was Blake
Mhm.
Bortles his backup in Carolina?
No, no, that can't be right. I don't ever remember Blake Bortles being in Carolina. I remember Blake Bortles being a Ram, a Packer clearly,
Hmm.
and the Ram might be it actually. Why does it keep formatting weird? Could when Blake Bortles was a Ram, Brandon Cooks or another Patriot? You know what it could be? It could be like, was he still there in 2019? Aqib Talib was a Patriot, and he was on that Rams team in 2018. But I don't know if Bortles became a Ram in 2019 or 20. Are there
Well,
any
let's see.
Jaguars
I
Patriots?
I think it was 2017 when they went to the AFC Championship game, right?
Right. And then he stuck around for 2018, I thought, though, because they ran it back. and then they were more middling in 2018. So I think it might have been 2019, and Brandon Cooks wasn't on the 2019 team. He was on the 2018 team.
Who was the quarterback for the Jaguars in 2019? Because Lawrence got drafted. Oh, okay. Yeah, you're probably.
I know there was the weird Gardner Minshew and an Italian dude or something. There were some funky Jaguars backups during that time, but Gardner Minshew. But then was 2020. 2020 was also some Gardner Minshew because that's when they had him and they got Trevor Lawrence the year after in 21.
Right.
Did they rock with Minshew and somebody else for 2 years? I don't know.
We could go with Ocho Cinco in
Ocho
two
Cinco
places.
or Corey Dillon.
Well, so here's the thing. Chase is kind of the obvious 100-plus receptions post 1999 for Cincinnati. Do you think Ocho Cinco ever did that, though?
I think he probably did. I was also thinking TJ Houshmandzadeh also had a massive season for the Bengals. AJ Green, Tyler Boyd. I don't know that Tyler Boyd ever had 100.
No.
That's
I'd go with Green before I would go with Boyd.
I feel like there should be some easier categories here. Jaguars, Panthers. Patriots, Jags, there should be some. I'm trying to think. These are really difficult ones, though, I got to say. I'm going to look at the 100. I think Allen Robinson would be this one because Allen Robinson had a huge year for the Jaguars.
Okay. Send it. Okay.
25% is not good, but it's something.
Did Calais Campbell ever play for the Panthers? He's played for 85 years, so.
No. He was Cardinals, Jaguars, Ravens, Dolphins, Ravens again this year.
Okay, what about Yannick Ngakoue?
Yannick Ngakoue, he was a Colt. He was a Jag. He was a Raven. He was a Viking for a second. I don't think he's any of these either.
Okay.
Ramsey, no. Boye was a Bronco. Where was AJ Boye before that? What about current day Jaguars? Oh, Jacoby Myers. That's going to be high.
I think it's with a K.
Oh, you're right.
Not too high.
That. No.
All right. Should we put Ocho Cinco for
which one?
I don't know.
I'd say for the 100, Chad.
I think he's Johnson right now.
Right now. Yeah, that's fine. And then this one we could do Corey Dillon. Yeah, that's fine. Not our lowest numbers, but
okay, because we used Allen Robinson for 100-plus receptions and played with Blake Bortles, who do we have for 100-plus receptions with the Jaguars? Did
BTJ do that as a rookie? I don't know that he had 100.
Did Calvin Ridley ever do it?
Not as a Jaguar, no. I'm trying to think what the names of the old guys were. Jimmy Smith. Jimmy Smith is going to be the one. Jimmy Smith will have reached this. This Jimmy Smith. What? Look at the
Yeah,
years on this Jimmy
yeah, I
Smith.
don't know.
It's this one. Yeah, I knew he was going to be the highest, but I knew he was also going to fit the goal.
Right.
5 out of 9 so far. Taking
We
a
haven't had a
chunk out.
miss yet, so
Yeah, I'll take that as a win so far. This is a Dalton spot.
I've played with Blake Bortles. That's so random. Why? Like, of all the people to choose.
It is.
I'm also thinking Jaguars, Panthers. There's like somebody that should be sticking out that isn't.
An ETN played for each of them, but it's the brothers ETN is my issue. Trevor and he changed his name. I forget what Travis Etienne changed his name to. Running back, center. Cade Mays went to the Lions. AJ Can. Did AJ Can play? I think AJ Can, who's a guard. I think this is going to be one of them. And
Send it.
Wrong.
Nope. All right, put Andy Dalton. Put Andy Dalton for Cincinnati and Carolina.
Yeah.
Cincinnati and Carolina.
Yeah. Andy Dalton. It's going to be so high. Yeah. Was it Robinson? They had a guard that played for the Panthers and Jaguars, I swear. It's not Trey Turner, was it? I don't think so. Myles Jack never played for the Patriots. The linebacker, Telvin Smith, retired.
This is a hard one.
I swear the Jags Panthers, there's an O lineman that I'm missing. It's not Cam Robinson, is it? These stupid ads. We're just gonna have to rip some guesses here.
Yeah. Let's see. Blake Bortles, when he was in LA, who may have there been overlap with?
I'm gonna rip Aqib Talib here, hoping that in 2019. No.
Yeah.
Oh
no,
no, I was right.
Good pull.
Hey, and that's our lowest one. Let's go. So we got one more guess.
Let's see. He wasn't there at the same time as he wasn't in LA at the same time as Baker Mayfield, was he?
Oh. No, Mayfield was later. Mayfield was 22. Maybe. I don't think so, but we can rip it if we want to. We got no other good guesses. Good to rip it?
Yeah, just go.
Nah.
Yeah. That was brutal.
Yeah. DJ Chark. Oh, DJ Chark was a Panther. And was a teammate of Blake Bortles. I want to see our lovely stats, though. Let's see. Whoop, where are my stats? We're getting stats. There we go. DJ Chark, LaVisca Chenault, Steve Burton. AJ Boye was a Panther. Oh, dang. Donovan McNabb
What?
for that can't be right.
No way.
Shark Boye, Andrew Norwell. That was the guard I was thinking of. He was still kind of high. Austin Corbett. Yeah, that's also right. Yeah. Were there
Wow.
any other? I want to check if there were any other crazy ones for Yannick Ngakwe. Huh. Wow. Tay Adams had 1,000 yards and what?
No, it's 100 receptions.
Wait, or when was Devontae? Oh, when Blake Bortles was a Packer, Devontae
Right.
Adams. Oh, that makes sense. Well, I don't think we did that bad considering how difficult those categories were.
Yeah,
But-
those were hard. Those were very hard.
But it was still fun.
Yeah.
Sweet. So we can get back into it then. Starting off, obviously, the big news of the day. Myles Garrett got traded. June 1 trade between the Rams and the Browns. Compensation for the trade. Myles Garrett goes to the Rams. And then Cleveland gets back the defensive end in, why am I blanking on this? Jared Verse. Gets a first-round pick in 2027, a second in 2028, and a third in 2029. And I looked, and it's actually a compensatory pick. If they try to trade Garrett back to the AFC North, that third-round pick becomes a first-round pick, which isn't going to happen because the Rams aren't going to trade Myles Garrett to the AFC North probably, but just a compensatory thing in there. But that is the trade. It's massive, groundbreaking. Myles Garrett, defending Defensive Player of the Year, just broke the sack record. Jack, immediate thoughts for you seeing that trade?
Immediate thoughts for me seeing that trade. There are a few. First, related to Myles Garrett, talk about best case scenario, right? I mean, even though Seattle really didn't lose much, and what they lost, they were able to reload. Everyone is basically saying that the Rams are the best team in the NFC. And so you go from one of the worst teams in the AFC to basically a team that it is Super Bowl or bust, is quite the improvement for Myles Garrett. He will be playing, opposite of by far the best quarterback that he's ever had as his teammate, which will make his efforts on the defense side of the football mean something. He will be, imagine how many sacks he'll get this year playing for a team that likely will be ahead at the end of games and other teams will have to pass instead of being behind, and other teams are just going to be handing the football off in the fourth quarter. That's really massive for Myles Garrett. So I think this is, outside of the fact that he'll get half the money that he would have been getting in Cleveland because of state income taxes in California. This is like most ideal situation for him. For the Browns, I think that you should have done what you had to do to get more. If I'm being totally honest, I think Jared Verse is good. He's very good. He's an up and comer, but at the same time, how many years do you have him, and how likely is he to sign an extension in Cleveland when he went from being on such a competitive team to now not? And it would not surprise me if he's trying to get out of there as soon as he can. So don't necessarily love that instead of draft pick, like another draft pick. If I was Cleveland, I would have said keep Verse and give us another first. If that was doable, and maybe the Rams were absolutely not about that. But I think this is fine. I think again they did have him for a little longer than just this next year, so I am a little surprised that you move on from him. I guess by moving on from him now, you do get more draft capital, but at the same time, you could have had him for another year. And now I look at that defense and I'm like, who is the guy that I'm afraid of on this defense? Like Denzel Ward. Denzel Ward is a solid corner, but he's not a Christian Gonzalez. He's not a Pat Surtain. Like he's not like that. So what am I? I mean, again, you're young. Carson Schwarzenegger was good last year. I think he led the league in tackles, right? Or was it just all rookies?
Close. It was close. He was very good.
Yeah, so he's very good, and they have Mason Graham, who I have high hopes for as a defensive tackle, but still, like the defense is the thing that got you in the playoffs a couple of years ago, and what's left of it, you basically just traded away. So I don't know about that for Cleveland. For the Rams, this is obviously a really big deal. Of course, they're in win now mode. They're in Super Bowl or bust mode because there's a strong possibility that this is the last go of it with Matt Stafford. That said, if you were going to invest that much draft capital, I don't know that going and getting Myles Garrett was the thing to use it on necessarily, because Jared Verse is a really good edge. I mean, again, it's not like it's one of those things that Myles Garrett is the best of the best. So of course it's like, do this, right? But also, if the Bills were like, we need to get better, we're going to trade Josh Allen to go get Patrick Mahomes. It's like, okay, you did improve at quarterback, but so marginally compared to these other places that are so drastic that you could get better, that it's like, why? There were talks about the Rams being interested in AJ Brown. Obviously, we're going to talk about him here in a second. That's not what happened in the end. So I just think that there were other things that it was like, hey, you maybe should have tried to do this, instead, especially because they did take Ty Simpson with their first round pick this year. So like that wasn't necessarily a pick that's building for right now. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think it was, again, it's not like it was a bad thing to do, right? And I think that it does make already a fairly strong defense that much better. But I also feel like there were other holes on that defense that you could have traded for another player of Garrett's caliber at that position and had much more significant of a bump in your defensive quality in doing so. That's sort of the only thought. But again, that's like really nitpicking about it. All in all, big win for Myles Garrett, win for the Rams, and I do kind of think win for the Browns, but not as strong of a win as it could have been trading Myles Garrett.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you make a ton of good points there. I like this trade, I think, for everybody involved. The only person I would consider a loser potentially would be Jared Verse, because Jared Verse on that defense in LA, being a superstar pass rusher, being a young guy who can get all the advertisement deals, and on that team that gets all this public facing positivity, I think is one thing. But the Browns without Myles Garrett, like Shedeur Sanders is the most intriguing thing about that team, and not for the best of reasons. But
right.
I also just want to point out that like Jared Verse is a really good player, but the gap in production between Jared Verse and Myles Garrett is like the ocean. Right now, Jared Verse has made 2 Pro Bowls in 2 years, which is very impressive. Like, it's very rare for players that young to make a Pro Bowl as a rookie, as a second-year player. That's really good. Awesome. But if you look at the number of sacks he has, his rookie year, he had 4.5 sacks, 11 tackles for loss. His second year, he had 7.5 sacks, 11 tackles for loss. Combined those, so for his first 2 years in the league, he has 12 sacks. Myles Garrett basically doubled that up in a single season this last year, notching 23 sacks to break the sack record. So the gap is that large. It's massive. Myles Garrett was able to affect plays at that sort of level, and he's the type of dude where you have to plan for 2 or 3 dudes to have to deal with him. where Jared versus it's like one dude and maybe somebody chipping or stuff like that, or maybe you'll double on occasion.
Right.
But I think for a Rams team that their defense the last couple of years has been built on, hey, we have this superstar player that you have to commit a ton of resources against. And then everybody else is playing one-on-one football. Everybody else is kind of able to swarm and play with advantage because they had Aaron Donald, because they had a dude where you'd have to commit 2 or 3 dudes to just say, Aaron Donald can ruin this play if you leave him one-on-one or even double-teamed. Like, you have to commit everything to Aaron Donald. I think that Myles Garrett slots into that position perfectly. Where Myles Garrett there, do I think Myles Garrett is going to break the sack record again this year? Like, on this defense, when they're leading this often, should he break the sack record this year? Hypothetically, sure. But I think it's much more likely that everybody else on that D-line has way more sacks because now they have much less pressure on them because nobody else is double teamed. Does everybody else in the secondary have way more pass defenses and way more interceptions because the pressure is just getting there immediately because Myles Garrett's there? I think that's likely. I just think that Myles Garrett may not have the gaudiest of stats like a 20-plus sack season this year, but that the Rams defense should go from a weakness last year where they played well throughout the year, but in the playoffs, they got torched by Sam Darnold. Like, Sam Darnold was able to pick apart that secondary, and they weren't able to take advantage of Sam Darnold's mistakes that he made in that first matchup they had against him because he was able to break it down when they weren't bringing blitzes. And when they were bringing blitzes, you were able to throw to spots because you didn't have guys playing sound enough coverage. But with the addition of McDuffie, with the addition of Garrett, you should be able to say we're rushing 4, we're dropping 7, and it's going to be very difficult life for a dude like Sam Darnold, a dude like Jalen Hurts, a dude like Baker Mayfield, who should be a really good player, should be able to play well. But against this defense, when they're able to allocate resources the way they will be now, I think that's great. I got to say, I hate the Browns, obviously, because I'm a Steelers fan, so I hate the Browns by necessity. But I really like the young assets that Cleveland is building around. Just looking at their entire roster for dudes 25 and under, Denzel Boston, they drafted early this year in the early second round. Casey Concepcion in the first round. Spencer Fano in the first round. Harold Fannin Jr. last year looked awesome as a rookie. Quinshon Judkins looked really good as a rookie before breaking his leg. Jared Verse is a really good edge rusher. Mason Graham was really good as a rookie. Carson Schwessinger was really good as a rookie. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, they drafted early in the second round, and people thought that he's really great value for that team. Shedeur Sanders, second-year player, like we don't know what he's going to be. Do we think he's going to be amazing? Do we think he's going to be Pro Bowl caliber, even if he made the Pro Bowl already? I don't know about that, but he's a young player that's going to get better. And I think they have some more prime trade candidates. Denzel Ward, who you brought up, could you trade him and get a second-round pick? I think you could get a good second-round pick for him. Tyson Campbell also at the cornerback position. Could you get a mid-pick, like a fourth-round pick or something? Sure. Could you liquidate Jerry Jeudy and just say, hey, give us a 5th or a 6th or something? Cedric Tillman as well. I think you have a bunch of dudes that you could liquidate all those guys out, get even more draft picks, and that they just have a really nice young core of all those dudes I named to say, if it's Shedeur Sanders or if it's a dude we're drafting in 2027 or 2028, that they have a really nice foundation where everybody's going to be hitting their prime 2-3 years from now. And they should be good then. Even if they're not good now, they're going to be quite good then when you have a bunch of 25-year-olds who are all really good athletes, who all know what they're doing by then, who everybody's on the same page in that way. Where Myles Garrett 2-3 years from now, he might still be a great player, but he's going to be a great player going this way instead of a great player going this way, like all these young dudes. So I think they sold at the right time. They got a really good return. If they could have gotten a better return, it was in the news that the Eagles were potentially in this, but that they were asking for Jalen Carter. And if they had to give up Jalen Carter, I don't think the D-line's as formidable because Jalen Carter is as good as he is, and what else is there around him? I just think that the Rams, to be able to switch out a good edge rusher for an elite all-time edge rusher, it was the perfect slot to upgrade, and they were able to do it. So I think it's a win for everybody. I consider this an A trade for everybody involved, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I think I'm not that high on it because one, I think that there is a world where the Rams could have kept Verse in this trade and added something different. And so then you also have a really good edge rusher on the opposite side of the best edge rusher in football. And also, I think that Cleveland could have gotten more than what they got for Myles Garrett. So I would I think I would give it a B plus for both sides, not quite an A for both sides. But yeah, I mean, I think this is a move that certainly makes more sense to me for the Rams than the Browns. But also, there's been this tug of war with Myles Garrett and the Browns for a few years now about what he wants and how committed he is to that organization. One thing that I will say, I would not be surprised. I know we're not doing our predictions, yet. We'll hit that back up again, when we get into the season. I would not be surprised if Aaron Donald comes out of retirement, say after Thanksgiving, and that he's still in insane shape and could probably lace up and play literally any game, any number of snaps, on literally a moment's notice. So it would not surprise me if Aaron Donald comes back here, like post Thanksgiving to, help ramp up for the playoffs, and then this will be an unstoppable machine.
I gotta say too, though, we know the Rams like to be all in. They like to say F these picks. They like to shoot their shot. That's how we got the 2018 Rams who went to the Super Bowl. That's how we got the 2021 Rams who won the Super Bowl. I also think that it's really funny that it's like, okay, who were the last first-round picks the Rams drafted? It's 2016 Jared Goff, who they traded, and then 2024 Jared Verse, who they traded. All the other first-round picks who they've ever drafted, they didn't even draft because they just traded away the picks. But it's just quite funny that another first-round pick kind of tossed by the Rams, even though he was a good player.
Yeah.
What I was going to say, though, was I think that this trade for the Rams makes the Ty Simpson pick even more confusing when this is clearly an all-in for the next 2-3 year window of Matt Stafford is an MVP Pro Bowl caliber quarterback right now, this year, next year. He won the MVP this year. I think he could still be a really good player this next year. But you draft Ty Simpson at 13 when you could have said, hey, we need another offensive lineman to be able to keep him upright. We need another wide receiver because Devontae Adams has broken down a little bit and he's older. We need somebody to be able to help Matt Stafford out when playing football games, as opposed to banking on if Matt Stafford gets hurt or down the road when he retires. I just don't see how that pick helps the Rams now when everything else they're doing is for helping the Rams now. And I get when people say, oh, but now they traded all these picks for Myles Garrett, so they won't have the assets then to be able to draft the quarterback later. So they need to draft the quarterback now because they wouldn't be able to later. But what I say to that is, well, what's even the point of going all in for Myles Garrett if you just draft a quarterback at 13? You could have traded that 13th overall pick for a high-end wide receiver. You could have drafted a high-end player with that pick. You could have included that pick in this trade instead of the first-round pick next year, so then you have all your firsts in the future. I just think that it's a mismanagement of assets in that way for drafting Ty Simpson when all the other signals are F them picks, except for that pick. Why? I don't know. But that's what the Rams do.
And I think also, like, there will be quarterbacks that have a much higher upside and probably have a much better tape coming out next year in the second round than I feel about Ty Simpson this year. So that's the other thing. I mean, we're talking about all these quarterbacks. We're talking about Lenora Sellers. We're talking about Arch Manning. Julian Sayin may come out. I'm blanking.
At Oregon, what's his name?
Yeah,
Dante
Dante
Moore.
Moore. Dante
Yeah.
Moore. That's a great one.
Mess
The
maker.
Maker, the kid who trains Sam Levitt.
Mhm.
He'll be at LSU. Trinidad Chambliss.
Mhm.
Like Gunnar Stockton. I mean, and the list goes on and on and on. CJ Carr out of Notre Dame. Like, there aren't going to be enough teams that need a quarterback that all of those guys are going to be gone before the Rams would be picking in the second round in 2027. So that's the other thing that makes it even more confusing is, especially thinking about we're going to draft this, like, hey, we'll let him sit and plan for the future type pick. Man, Lenora Sellers in the second round next year is like the perfect guy to do that with, you know? And instead, you use pick 13 on Ty Simpson, which is just, again, very, very surprising that was the direction that they went. Um, their other quarterback, Rocco Becht, at Penn State, he's had a lot of starting experience, high quality starting experience. So again, there are others that we could go on and on. So I just find it, yeah, very, very odd and peculiar that that's what the Rams did.
Mhm.
Um, Especially then, the difference between this and the Packers drafting Rodgers or the Packers drafting um, Love is that, like, they like you said with the Rams, then they go and trade all of these picks
Mhm.
instead of holding on to them and using them to draft guys that can still help them right now. So it's just, like you said, very confusing.
Yep, completely agree with you. Moving on to the AJ Brown trade. This was a trade that we knew was coming down the pipeline for months and months and months and months. Everybody linked up AJ Brown and the Patriots because Mike Vrabel, obviously, AJ Brown's coach when he was on the Titans, when he was drafted. Everybody remembers the clip of when the Titans traded AJ Brown to the Eagles, and Mike Vrabel looked sick to his stomach. He looked absolutely ill when they traded him. And they got back the pick that they then drafted the kid out of Arkansas and blanket on the
Traylon
name.
Burks.
Yeah, Burks. And Burks was not a good player, and he's obviously struggled. But AJ Brown now reconnecting with Vrabel. The Eagles trade away a first round pick in 2028 and a fifth round pick in 2027. We knew that this was going to happen. It seemed like everybody said the trade's just like, this is just a formality. The trade's been done for months. Now that we know that it's here, we know what the details of the trade are. How do we feel about it for both sides, Jack?
I feel like New England gave up more than I expected them to. Um, I did not think that first round pick was necessary for this trade. Um, I felt like the Patriots had all of the leverage in it because, again, the only other team that we saw show any interest was the Rams. So basically, they had to outbid the Rams, which was, again, I don't think going to take much, especially with the Rams turning all of those assets over to Cleveland for Myles Garrett. So then I think, okay, who did they have to compete against? And there may have been other teams that they had to compete against that we just don't know about, but didn't feel like they had to compete against many other opponents. The Eagles obviously wanted to get rid of him, so I'm just really surprised that a first round pick was involved in this trade. I thought that maybe a second and a third instead of a first and a fifth, or 2/3, maybe even. I didn't think that a first round pick was going to need to be part of the package to get it done. So that said, though, uh, I mean, imagine now what it's going to look like with Drake May having AJ Brown to throw the ball to. Like, that's just unbelievable. Um, I feel about I feel about New England right now the way that I have said with Washington and before them Houston, where it's like, okay, you were ahead of schedule, that doesn't mean, oh, well, we were ahead of schedule anyway. Let's keep our schedule the way it is. It's like, nope, you're moving the schedule up, and
Mm,
I've really wanted Houston and Washington to think that way and do that. It's
mhm,
hard to say if they have or haven't because of then some injuries and stuff that's been involved with that. But I can say that neither of those teams made a splash like this.
mhm,
And I think that this is a real significant investment in Drake May and in this team. And it's a significant investment in, you know, hey, our window is open right now, and it's open before we have to give Drake that first contract extension. So let's try to take advantage right now.
mhm,
And I think that this was a great decision to do that. So
mhm,
looking at it for AJ Brown, he's obviously going somewhere that has much better competent quarterback play. And I think much better, more competent, consistent play calling that was very hit or miss and has been very hit or miss basically during the entirety of the Nick Sirianni era in Philadelphia. I think something else that is um, important to think about and to mention that with this is I think that uh, this does create a lot of relief in the Eagles locker room. Like we were seeing, AJ Brown reading a book on the sideline and stuff like that, and it was all ha-has because they were still winning and they ended up winning the Super Bowl that year. But that that alone should have been the sign like things are not what they seem. And now here we are. It was a really bad year last year for them. For their standards. Um, Things did not look good offensively at all, which wasn't good. Jordan Mailata said yesterday that after this has all happened, and he is really their biggest vocal leader there on the offense. Their tackle. He said, thank God this is over, and that we can finally just move on from this. Stuff like that wears on a locker room, especially when it's a high profile guy in a high profile position like your wide receiver one. The questions, though, that I do have for Philadelphia, um, I do not think that Makai Lemon is ready to just immediately step in and be a wide receiver one.
mhm.
Devontae Smith, uh, I don't necessarily know that he's ready to be a wide receiver one. Um, I just kind of look at that. I don't I think that he could, but I think there needs to be somebody else to step up to do it just because of Devontae Smith's skill set, right?
Mhm.
Like Amon-Ra St. Brown is a wide receiver one. You know what makes that possible? Having a guy like Jameson Williams on the outside that can torch guys down the field, having a tight end like Sam Laporta, that can, and a running back like Jahmyr Gibbs that, can be lightning in a bottle, out of the backfield, right? I look at the Eagles and I don't see the Jameson Williams on the opposite side to clear the way. Dallas Goedert is getting older and less productive. Eli Stowers has a lot of growth that he needs to do and development that he needs to do to be able to really be a standout wide or a standout tight end.
Mhm.
Um, Saquon Barkley, they're probably not throwing the ball to him out of the backfield as much because of his age. And so those are sort of my holdups about what the wide
Mhm.
receiver room looks like for Philadelphia moving forward. But this was obviously the right move for New England. It was obviously the right move for Philadelphia, and for that, and it was certainly the best thing for AJ Brown. And so this one, I do look at it and view it as a win-win-win, for everyone involved.
Mhm. Yep, I get you there. I think that for the Patriots, who were ahead of schedule, like you said, like Washington was, like Houston was, that the gap that this should give them the opportunity to close for the Patriots, I think, is is really feasible with AJ Brown in the fold. Where if you remember the Super Bowl against the Seahawks this year in February, what player was making plays for the Patriots? And the answer is Mac Hollins. Mac Hollins made a big play. Mac Hollins caught a touchdown. And Mac Hollins was able to do that because he's a bigger body dude who can get deeper down the field, even though he's not a speed dude. But it's because that secondary was really fearsome. That pass rush was able to get home really easily. And I think that just the mismatch of the quality of players in the Patriots on the outside who were able to just face off against that DB room wasn't high enough, where you didn't have a wide receiver one, you didn't really have a wide receiver two. Like Stephon Diggs was your best wide receiver, and he wasn't able to get separation against that team in the Seahawks. I just think that this slots everything better and provides somebody who can play make for other people. Where Drake May this last year, who was it who could make a play for Drake May to make Drake May's life easier? Right now, this last year, it was Drake May throwing the ball to a spot where the receiver was there. It was on time. It was a good route. And it was drawn up perfectly. But it wasn't like there were massive yards after the catch because you had great athletes. It wasn't like there were players just beating the DB down the field because they had speed to be able to burn them. It was just a lot of methodical Tom Brady football, 8-yard pass here, 10-yard pass here, 7-yard pass here, 5-yard run, 12-yard pass, just methodical. And I think A.J. Brown provides some answers that nobody else on the Patriots were able to provide. Travion Henderson should be able to add some explosiveness that ideally would be able to open things up a little more. But he wasn't able to do that, especially up against the Seahawks last year. I just think that the ability to win one-on-one for A.J. Brown should be able to lessen so much of that pressure on Drake May. And if you just look at A.J. Brown's stats, this was kind of shocking to me. A.J. Brown was only in Tennessee for 3 years, 2019, 2020, 2021. He had 1,000 yards, 870 yards, but he played fewer games. The moment he got to Philadelphia 2022, 1,500 yards, 1,456 his second year, and then 1,079 and 1,003 his last 2 years. I think that this year on the Patriots, it's going to look a lot like those first 2 years in Philadelphia more than the last two, where I think if the over-under was set at 1,250 or 1,300 for A.J. Brown, that like the over is very likely to me, because this is a dude who I think you can throw the ball to 9 times out of 10 and he's going to make a play. You're going to be able to draw him open. He's going to be able to break a tackle and go 90. Like, this is the kind of dude that is going to be able to get volume in the Josh McDaniels offense. If he doesn't have 80 catches minimum this year, I'm going to be shocked. Like, this should be a highly productive A.J. Brown season. And the fact that this is coming off of 2 years with Philadelphia, where when A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts were in college, they were buddies. They would always practice together in the offseason, and they were great friends. And that's why that first 2 years on the Eagles, they were so prolific, because they were on the same page. And I don't know what happened the last 2 years, but it seems like things fell apart with Jalen Hurts. And I wonder if a more content A.J. Brown just completely changes his disposition in how he plays on the football field, not reading books on the sideline, not being moody in press conferences. I'm just curious what this looks like on the Patriots, because I think the ceiling is sky high for A.J. Brown, that we could start being like, wait a second, he's a top 3 receiver in the NFL again? He's top 5 for sure? Like, even in a league with Puka, Jamar, Jefferson, like, A.J. Brown was right below that the 2 years when he was scoring like crazy. It's just this last 2 years, it's like, man, can he actually catch with volume? Is he actually being an impactful player on a down-to-down basis? And I think Jalen Hurts and the inconsistency of the offensive coordinator position let him down more often than not. But I think with this offensive coordinator, with this quarterback, we should see a great A.J. Brown, that's for sure. I also just want to point out for the Eagles, like you're saying, they draft Mekhi Lemon. They obviously have Devonta Smith on the outside. Devonta Smith, it feels like, meshes with Jalen Hurts perfectly, in that it's like Devonta Smith run down the sideline and just get deep, and I'm just going to throw you a moon ball, very like Russell Wilson style of just like deep ball. And you can run a post as well, and it's just deep ball. And that's how you got the play in the Super Bowl, where it was the kill shot against the Chiefs the year they blew him out, because Devonta Smith was able to run that route and get open with ease. I'm just curious if Mekhi Lemon is able to make plays in the same way that mesh with Jalen Hurts. Because I'm just curious if Jalen Hurts is going to be able to find him because he's a smaller player. I'm going to be curious if he's going to be able to hit him in stride, be able to throw to spots accurately. I just don't know that there are any players better than Devonta Smith and AJ Brown for meshing with a player like Jalen Hurts quite like those guys were. And he still has Devonta Smith, but I don't think Mekhi Lemon's that guy, even though he's a good player for sure.
Yep. Yeah, I think, and again, like I use the Amon-Ra St. Brown example when looking at the Philadelphia offense, but you could pick any team that the wide receiver one isn't your big, fast, deep ball threat. Like with those Russell Wilson teams, it was DK Metcalf, right? Big, strong dude who can, yes, move across the middle of the field, but really where he's his best is moving down the field, right? But you have these other guys like, Amon-Ra St. Brown, like Cooper Kupp when he was in LA, that it's like you're a wide receiver one, you're an alpha as a wide receiver, but your skill set is that of, the lateral, shorter route type guy.
Receiver type archetype, yes.
Right, exactly. And so I think that Devonta Smith could be an alpha in that way. I'm not sure that he can be an alpha with the down the field stuff. I think that a lot of his success doing that up until this point was because AJ Brown was on the other side of the field, and so it'll be interesting to see, like, okay, now you are the guy. Now you are by yourself, like when, and we see this in lots of sports, in the NBA, in particular, it's like, when Kevin Durant left Oklahoma City, it's like, okay, Russ, this is your team now. You are the guy, and he went and averaged a triple-double, like, so Smith can step into that, but also I think that it will be harder because you also have much worse quarterback play than you did in years prior, which is really odd, like this regression from Jalen Hurts that, you see from guys like as they get older and get near the end of their career, like we saw from Russell Wilson, but also Russell Wilson had like 10 Pro Bowls, like between his rise and his fall, where like Hurts, basically peaked for a 2 out of 3 year stretch, and now we're like, what is this? It would not surprise me if Jalen Hurts becomes the next sort of Darnold-esque reclamation project quarterback that we see go somewhere, in a couple of years, and that everyone has really high hopes for, and if a team is able to get a lot of success out of him while paying him far less than he's getting paid right now, the genius that will look like, down the line.
Yep. And I think that opens up the conversation, like you're saying, about Jalen Hurts, where we obviously knew that there were conversations being had about Jalen Hurts. Is he the problem? Is OC the problem? Is AJ Brown the problem? And who is it that we're pointing the finger at? Because Howie Roseman is going to be there. The owner's going to be there. Nick Sirianni's been there, and he's won a Super Bowl, but the Eagles have hired and fired coaches worse, I think, than Nick Sirianni, that's for sure. I just think that this isn't the end of this saga, of this power struggle for AJ Brown and Hurts, where even though AJ Brown's gone now, is Hurts safe? Is Sirianni safe? Because if I'm honest, I think that AJ Brown is the better player than Jalen Hurts is a quarterback. And I think AJ Brown's a better receiver than Nick Sirianni is a coach. And so the fact that he was the first one out of town among those three is shocking, because the Eagles love to hoard great players. They love to make trades to get high-end assets. And the fact that this was the dude that was thrown off the boat first, I think, like you're saying, I don't know that I'd call it a reclamation project the same way, because Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, those weren't dudes that were Pro Bowlers and won Super Bowl MVP. Like they are far below what Jalen Hurts has been as a player in terms of his resume. But I think that could Jalen Hurts 1 year from now, 2 years from now, be forced to leave town? He's on a bigger contract than any of those other guys ever were. But would I be shocked if a year from now, 2 years from now, Sirianni and Hurts are gone and we have everything all completely anew? No, I wouldn't be shocked. But I don't think this power struggle is over, and I think we're going to hear more and more come out in the next year about Hurts, about Sirianni, about this whole divorce. That felt like it was a long time coming. It was like your parents sleeping in separate bedrooms, and like you know that it's going to happen eventually, but it's just sticking until there was that breaking point. And June 1 was that point that they knew the kids turned 18 and they're leaving the house. Now is the time to split. The divorce was a long time coming, and now it's happened. AJ Brown and the Eagles are gone. But I think we're going to hear messy stories like we do with every single breakup. After the breakup happens, somebody's not going to be happy. Somebody's going to find more success after the breakup happens. And we're going to hear more drama. And we're going to be here for it. We're going to talk about it when that happens. But right now, as I look at it, I think A.J. Brown got the better end of this divorce than the Eagles. And it's not that the Eagles lost this trade, because the first-round pick's a really good return. But A.J. Brown gets a high-end quarterback. He gets a high-end head coach. He gets a great offensive coordinator. And even with the Rossini drama for the Patriots, I still think that this team could be a high-end playoff team. Maybe not a Super Bowl team this year again, because going to back-to-back Super Bowls with this sort of roster, I think will be shocking if the Patriots can make another one, considering the deficiencies throughout the roster. But right now, I think the Eagles have more holes than just A.J. Brown just left. I think that the receiver room's actually pretty dang good right now when you talk about everything overall on this roster. I think when you look at head coach and quarterback, though, that's where the microscope's going to be on in the next year or two. And that's where I think there could be more of a falling out in that organization, that the Eagles always have drama. They might win Super Bowls, but they have drama. So we're here for that.
Yeah. I've got a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think the power ranking of NFC East will be 3 years from now? We're in the summer between the 2020. Let's see. It would be the summer of 2029. So the summer between the 2028 and the 2029 season. Where do you think the outlook of the NFC East will be? Right, we've got Jaden Daniels, who's about to start or has just started, maybe 1 year into his new contract. Mm-hmm. We've got the Giants, where Jackson Dart is probably about to play on his fifth-year option. Or his fifth-year option has been picked up, and they're working on that, figuring that out. Arvell Reese has 3 years of development, so that's sort of what we see of the Giants. The Cowboys, will have some really, some young guys on the defense that have really grown and improved, hopefully. How does it stack up for you? Because when I think about it, thinking about 3 years from now, I see the NFC East as, like, genuinely, if John Harbaugh is still the head coach, I see the Giants at the top. Then I think I see Cowboys, Eagles, Commanders. And I think that there is a pretty steep drop off from the Cowboys to the Eagles. Now again, 3 years from now, we might already be a year into, or 2 years past Sirianni being fired, and 1 year past them replacing Jalen Hurts, and maybe they're on the upswing. So maybe 3 years is a little too far in the future. But again, everything that you said, talking about how we feel about Sirianni and how we feel about Hurts, that's sort of how I see it playing out, because it isn't just Sirianni and Hurts. There are other guys that have left or are getting older. That offensive line that the Eagles had that was so paramount in their 3 years, 4 year run of, NFC championship, NFC champion, loss in the first round, Super Bowl champion. Like those 4 years, Kelsey obviously is gone.
Mhm.
Dickerson is getting older. Mylott is getting older. So like that's going to be a thing that they're going to have to finally really take a look at.
Mhm.
They've got some young guys that have really panned out on defense. They also have some young guys that have kind of been duds on defense too. So I'm just curious briefly where you have those four teams sort of stacked up if we're looking at summer 2029.
Mhm. I think that when I look at it, summer 2029, I have a very different order than you. So this is going to be weird.
Okay.
I'm going to have the Cowboys number one, and then I'm going to have the Eagles two, a softer two. And then I have the Giants three as a stronger three, and then Washington four. I just think that at 3 and 4 with the Giants and Washington, I think those are both prime spots to where they're going to have massive turnover at the head coach and GM positions. Where I think that the Giants right now, like their GM's a dead man walking, and like I think any failure is going to cause that GM to be turned over. And then you're going to have to reevaluate the entire roster. You're going to have to say, okay, John Harbaugh, like we trust you, but like, how are we going to proceed from here? And I think that the ownership gap in this decision, in this division, is really interesting to me because the Eagles, I think, have the best owner in the division, but they don't have the quarterback figured out or the head coach in terms of guys that I really like. But because their owner and GM are so good, I'm just like, oh, yeah, their O line could get older, but they're just going to draft other good O line dudes. Their quarterback could be a guy that you need to trade, but like they can draft a quarterback in the second round. They can like figure it out. Oh, like they have a head coach that I don't like. They could fire him and they could get another head coach that they could win a Super Bowl with. Like we've seen all of that before to the point where I trust the Eagles as a two. I just think right now for the Cowboys, they just had a really good draft, in my opinion. They have some really explosive wide receivers who I think are still going to be good a couple of years from now. And I think Dak Prescott is still going to be great enough 3 years from now to make me feel so confident about the offense. And I think their head coach showed to be pretty good this year. He was somebody that I was very suspicious of in Schottenheimer. But man, their offense looked great and they didn't look like a mess, even though their defense was a mess. So I think that Cowboys, because that offensive floor, as long as Dak Prescott is healthy, even 3 years from now, I think a mid-30s quarterback can still be great. Dak Prescott's never been a quarterback that relied on being mobile. He is decently mobile still, but he can throw the ball with volume efficiently to the point where I trust him. I trust the head coach pretty much right now. And I think their offensive dudes between the O-line, the receivers, like I think the next 3 years, they could have the most explosive offense for the next 3 years of any team in the league. Like their offense the last couple of years has been explosive when Dak's been on the field. I just think Cowboys, Eagles, because of top-down sort of stability, even if they throw Sirianni overboard. Then Giants, I just think that even with the owner and GM questions that Harbaugh I trust, and this roster has some talent, so I like that. I just think that Washington has a floor that's like, oh my God, things could be a disaster. Because I think Jaden Daniels could get a life-altering sort of injury because he's skinny, because the O-line isn't great, because the team isn't great. And I think that the roster just doesn't have that much talent. Terry McLaurin at receiver, who else? Running backs, I don't like. Tight ends, I don't like. O-line, I don't like. Defense, I don't like. Like, I don't like anything about this team outside of Jaden Daniels. That's the fact of the matter. Head coach
Yep.
and GM, I don't like either. And so I think that they have so much work to do to build a foundation around Jaden Daniels when they were so far ahead of schedule. So I think that their floor 3 years from now could be like, oh, Jaden Daniels isn't the athlete that he used to be. Oh, our roster never came together. Our O-line's a massive hole. Our defense never got good. We just turned over the head coach once or twice. Like, I think that the floor for Washington could be a disaster, even with the best quarterback in this division, depending on how you feel about Dak in a given year.
Cool. All
Mhm.
right. Well, hey, we the summer is here, which means that who knows what other drama we're about to see. Because it's June 1st, that means we're probably a month and a half from the George Pickens and Jerry Jones standoff beginning. So that'll always be fun. And yeah, lot of stuff. OTAs going on right now. We didn't even talk about AJ Brown's AI pictures on Instagram. But yeah, fun stuff. Um, there's some really interesting stuff happening in college football right now that we'll get to talking about here, as well as the summer goes on. So until next time, thank you all so much for watching, and have a good one, everybody.